Okay, today is a video that's been a long time coming. We're looking at 11624's recent and very popular line of Gen 3 power paddles, which come in three unique shapes: the Vapor, the Pegasus, and the classic Hurache-X. And these paddles are super special. And if you're not familiar with 11624, I've been talking about them on the channel for just about as long as I've been making YouTube videos. I reviewed this bad boy here, their very first paddle called the YSF, way back in September of 2023. And that's pretty much a century ago when it comes to pickleball gear years. To remind you of that ancient era, it was when the Legacy Pro was all the rage. Vatic pretty much dominated the space when it came to balancing innovation and affordability, and there were probably only a few pickleball gear podcasts at the time. But boy, things have changed. Pickleball Studio caught wind of 11624 with their now discontinued Hurache-X Control Plus last year, which I believe he likened to a more powerful DBD with an extended handle. And 11624 has been on a rocket ship ever since. I actually covered the initial Hurache variations last year as well, and if you're a super paddle nerd, it's definitely worth a watch because that particular line really informed where 11624 is today, in my opinion. And spoiler alert, they're a freaking juggernaut with a very streamlined selection of paddles that are all super awesome, in my opinion. And we're going to get into all the nitty-gritty with their take on Gen 3 in a bit, but first, I wanted to let you know 11624 is letting me give one of their next gen power paddles away for free. So be sure to stick around until the end of the video to see how to enter. But if you want to get a head start, you can go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Also, if you really want to stay on top of all the latest when it comes to pickleball gear news and updates, you should definitely check out and subscribe to my brand new podcast. We're covering a lot over there, and Wilson, my co-host, told me if we don't get some more subscribers, he's going to jump ship and try and get with Jacob and Mr. Tickle and try and third wheel All Drives pod. So if for no other reason than to maintain peace in the pickleball pod universe, you should definitely check out what we're doing. You can catch all the latest episodes here on YouTube, as well as on all the major podcast platforms. And now let's get straight into it. Before we talk about the individual paddles, I want to dive into 11624's take on Gen 3, which is super unique. First, if you don't know what Gen 3 means or what a next gen paddle is, I cover this in detail in my Carbon True Foam video if you want to dive deep down into the paddle nerd rabbit hole. But to summarize, I consider Gen 3 paddles to be paddles that use additional foam inside their cores compared to typical Gen 2 paddles, which usually only have a single ring of hard foam around the core's perimeter. And this additional foam inside Gen 3 paddles typically causes them to hit harder than Gen 2 paddles. For 11624 though, they did something pretty unique. Compared to Honolulu's Gen 3, J2K Plus, and J2 Ti Plus, which I know really well and have already covered on the channel, as well as Yola's Gen 3 paddles, 11624 has adopted a much different approach with their Gen 3 build. Honolulu and Yola opt for two rings of different kinds of foam around their cores. The typical hard foam on the outside edge, like that seen in traditional Gen 2 paddles, as well as an additional softer foam ring closer to the core. However, while 11624's power paddles do utilize a floating core design like Honolulu's Plus paddles, they are only incorporating a single ring of soft EVA foam with the addition of what they're describing as a reinforced edge technology on the sides of the paddles. And what does all that mean? Well, we'll talk more about how this tech translates to performance in a bit, but I would say it allows for a more linear feeling paddle compared to many of the other Gen 3 paddles out right now, which often have a more dynamic feel where hard hits hit exponentially harder than soft hits and require you to really shift mindsets between your baseline game and your soft kitchen game. So the 11624 paddles are just a bit easier to handle in my opinion compared to many of the other Gen 3 power paddles out right now, with more predictable power output that doesn't vary as much between soft and hard hits. And while I think that makes them easier to control, that does not mean they're any less powerful. So with that as our backdrop, let's go through the different shapes and their specs. I want to start with the Pegasus version of 11624's new power series, as I think it's super special and is the sleeper of the line that's been a bit overshadowed by the Vapor. But don't worry, we'll talk about that one too. The Pegasus Power has 11624's very unique wide body shape, which comes in at 15.8 inches by 8.12 inches, with a massive sweet spot with an advertised 7.5 twist weight. And this thing is as stable of a paddle as you can find. As someone that plays mostly with hybrids, I absolutely loved how this could catch any ball coming my way and throw it back with a lot of juice coming from that Gen 3 build. It was really hard to set down. And then 11-6-24 really experimented a lot with face materials last year, including trying out a lot of paddles with Kevlar, and they landed on a layup for their Power Series that's 2 layers of carbon fiber with 1 layer of fiberglass sandwiched in the middle. So you've got some pop on your hits, but the soft hits feel a bit more muted to me compared to 11-6-24's previous carbon fiber Hurache paddles released last year, for example, which I always thought had just a tad too much pop for my personal style. And the Pegasus Power has the lowest swing weight of the three, coming in at 109 to 112, but I would say it feels like it's got much more oomph than what those numbers suggest. And all of the power paddles come in at $160 after you use promo code MatthewK to knock off $10. And each paddle has a 6-month warranty as well. Also, they're all USAP PB Core 43 approved, so very much future-proof for tournament play if that's important to you. And before we move ahead, let's look at the super popular Vapor as well, which I believe was Pickleball Studio's favorite of the Power line and is just about never in stock. This shape is a bit longer than the Pegasus, coming in at 16.25 inches with a more narrow 7.75 inch waist, making it a true hybrid. However, what's interesting about this shape is that its design is kind of the inverse of the super popular hybrid J2 shape from Honolulu. Instead of having the J2's stretched out bottom with that boost of stability, 11-6-24 has actually stretched out the top, opting to give their hybrid shape more plow through and power compared to Honolulu's hybrid. So a power ceiling a tad bigger than the Honolulu J2K Plus, but with a smaller sweet spot compared to the J2K Plus, with the Vapor having a 7.0 target twist weight. And just like the other power paddles, the Vapor is $160 after promo code MatthewK and is also USAP PB Core 43 approved. And now the last shape is the Hurache-X, which is one of my favorite paddle shapes of all time. It's a true elongated paddle at 16.5 by 7.5 inches, but that 6-inch handle is just great for two-handers and is pure magic when it comes to whips. Also, for whatever reason, this shape cuts through the air super well and never feels sluggish in the hands, in my opinion. And just like the rest of the Power Series, it's utilizing that same Gen 3 core design and CFC layup with a target swing weight of 116 to 119 and a target twist weight of 6.5. However, to me, this paddle plays like it's got a much bigger sweet spot than that number indicates, but it might be because I'm super used to this shape, having played a lot with the now discontinued Hurache-X control. And this paddle also comes in at $160 after promo code MatthewK knocks off $10 and is once again USAP PB Core 43 approved. Okay, to really sum it up, I think these paddles are what I would describe as power paddles for the masses. I had given that title to Chorus's Fireline a while back, but those have had USAP issues and are now pretty much discontinued. And what I mean by for the masses goes back to what I said at the top of the video when comparing the 11-6-24 Power Paddles Gen 3 play attributes to some of the other popular Gen 3 paddles out right now, like the Honolulu J2K Plus and J2 Ti Plus, as well as Yola's Gen 3 paddles. And it boils down to the fact that 11-6-24 somehow figured out how to give their Gen 3 paddles a massive power boost compared to Gen 2 paddles, but in a very linear way. So you don't have to calibrate how you play your soft game up at the kitchen any differently than you do for hard hits at the baseline. The power input and output plays very linearly in my opinion. So it's very easy to grab one of these coming from a Gen 2 paddle and being super comfortable right away. And that is not the case with a lot of other Gen 3 paddles. And I think 11-6-24's secret sauce was keeping their Gen 3 design relatively simple, at least in regards to the combination of materials they used and how they used them. And that's not to say arriving at this recipe was easy or lacked complexity. I mean, 11-6-24 is not new to the power paddle sandbox, having also created a super poppy niche power paddle called the Hurache-X Alpha 1. And while this paddle is beloved by a small community and often pops up on 11-6-24's website, and I believe promo code MatthewK should give you a discount with this one, it's not a power paddle for the masses, in my opinion, simply because the level of pop off the face isn't as easy to control as what we see in 11624's new power line. The simplicity of 11624's Gen 3 build really reveals how embracing and leaning into design restraint can have massive results. Instead of mixing different kinds of foam or Frankensteining its placement, 11624 did one simple ring of EVA with some additional support that allows for a paddle that really invites the ball to sink into it, creating some really nice stretched out dwell time. But then the power paddle surface layup utilizes some carefully placed fiberglass in its blend to give folks a bit of extra pop when they need it that isn't too crazy. And I think 11624's approach is super smart. That keep things simple attitude is actually the engine of Gen 4 tech and full foam paddles, and it's nice to see a Gen 3 paddle that embraces that philosophy as well. And as for how the shapes compare, I personally love the Pegasus. In the past, I've been an all-court player leaning towards control, and hitting with this one was just super nice. I love the secure feeling I had with every ball strike, and I think this is a great option for anyone hesitant about jumping into the Gen 3 waters. This shape is super unique and it should lean control, but that Gen 3 build makes it a secret powerhouse in my opinion. As for the Vapor, I totally see why this one is so beloved, and it's definitely the poppiest of the bunch in my opinion. The sweet spot is a little bit less forgiving than its wide body sibling, but if you're focused on aggressive play at the kitchen and initiating firefights, this is an easy recommend. And once again, tons of power from the baseline on hard hits. As for the Hurache-X version, this one has a special place in my heart. I've always loved this shape, and I personally think it sits between the Pegasus and the Vapor in the control department. Not quite as easy to handle as the Pegasus, but not as tricky to dial in as the Vapor. But that could be because I'm so used to this particular shape's balance point, having played so much with the Hurache-X control. Regardless, with this paddle, I personally never felt I was mishitting, so the sweet spot just felt bigger to me than the Vapors. Also, that extended handle and elongated shape really lets you push out a lot of power from the baseline, and it just strikes a really nice balance between control and power, in my opinion. My podcast co-host Wilson actually mains this paddle and goes over his thoughts on how it plays in this episode in case you want to hear what he thinks about it. But to really summarize, these are some of the best power paddles out right now, and I see this particular line being relevant for a long time to come. And it's awesome to see a small company come onto the scene, innovate, experiment, really invest in the pickleball community, listen to customer feedback, and then hit a massive home run with a super unique release. Once again, it's crazy to think they started with this and then created something wholly original with these. And before I talk value, I want to highlight these overgrips from LUQI, which I really love. I think their ultimate grips in mint are a perfect color match for 11624's paddles, and I can't recommend them enough. And while 11624 does offer overgrips as well, their teal ones and a lot of other colors are sold out at the moment, and to be honest, I'm not sure when they'll be back in stock. As for LUQI's ultimate grips, they balance tackiness and cushion really well and seem to hold up a long time. Plus, they have a bazillion colors as well as options of overgrips that vary in tackiness and dryness for folks that are super picky. After promo code MatthewK, a pack of 4 of the ultimates are a little over $7, and that's a super great value in my opinion. And then I also wanted to highlight the edge tape I'm using for these paddles. Typically, I love pickle skin edge tape because it's the lightest and most pliable edge tape I've been able to find. It's super easy to push the bubbles out when you're applying it, and the pickle skin edge tape just lasts a really long time. But for the 11624 power paddles, I didn't want to cover up this crazy looking edge guard with this cool color gradient. So I wanted to find some edge protection that was transparent. I knew clear Scotch tape or packing tape would be too thin and wouldn't add much protection from scrapes. Plus, I didn't want to deal with that level of stickiness. So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I stumbled on a few hacks and clear edge tape suggestions, and it seems a good number of folks use vinyl wrap for cars as clear paddle edge tape. However, after reading too many reviews about the 1-inch tape rolls being jagged and not being too excited about using a hairdryer or a heat gun to adhere my edge tape, I kept hunting, and I eventually stumbled onto this. This is clear vinyl safety marking tape for dance floors, and this stuff actually works great as edge tape. It's got a clear matte finish that you can see right through, so you don't have to sacrifice this paddle's cool look while trying to preserve it. And I really can't recommend this stuff enough. It sticks to the edge guard well, and I'm just really liking it. Also, it's dirt cheap. You can get a roll of 36 yards for about $9 on Amazon. Also, it comes in 1-inch width, which is key. And as a PSA, if you're using 3/4 inch electrical tape, just stop. That's too narrow for a 60mm paddle. You're not protecting the lip of the edge guard with tape that narrow. And that's the part of the paddle that gets damaged the most if you do an accidental dig into the concrete. You've got to get properly sized edge tape like pickle skins, or this clear vinyl tape, or purchase actual 1-inch electrical tape. Anyway, a beautiful paddle like this with a unique edge guard deserves something special in my opinion, so I wanted to share this info in case it's helpful to anyone else. I'll be sure to leave a link for all the edge protection I've mentioned down in the video description, and if you have other recommendations, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to know what else is out there. And now that you know how to protect your investment, let's talk 11/6/24 power paddle value really quickly. Well, to cut to the chase, I think $160 after you use promo code MatthewK for a $10 discount is a great deal for a Gen 3 power paddle. While companies like Yola and Gearbox are charging their customers well over $200 for their most innovative options, 11/6/24 is keeping things affordable. And I also appreciate that they're investing in the pickleball gear review community as well by having an affiliate program in place that utilizes discount codes. We're starting to see some companies really strip their affiliate programs, and I personally think that's going to hurt customers as their products won't be able to be tested out and compared to what's on the market by reviewers nearly as easily. And I also think this reveals how 11/6/24 is truly committed to the pickleball community and all the gearheads and the paddle nerds and everyone that's helped push them to where they are. They could easily try and eke out every penny of profit that's possible, and we're seeing this elsewhere with other companies, but 11/6/24 seems focused on making great products that allow them to be profitable, but are also genuinely invested in being a positive addition and part of the pickleball community. And to me, I get the sense that it's very authentic and genuine. David, the owner of 11/6/24, lives in the trenches of Pickleball Studios Discord and is clearly obsessed with customer feedback and bringing to market innovative options that are super unique while also keeping things super affordable, which was the ethos of the company when they very first started before they ever blew up. Once again, it's amazing to see a brand start with this and now have 3 awesome power paddles that are super unique, as well as 2 additional lines with their all-court and jelly bean paddles, all of which really cater to a broad market that's universally focused on getting the biggest bang for their buck. To me, the 11/6/24 hype is very real. I love their story, and I'm super excited to see what they do next, as I doubt they have any plan to rest on their laurels for too long. And before we wrap up and talk giveaway, I did want to highlight today's featured accessory. Okay, today's featured accessory is something I'm really excited about. It's a semi-portable net from a company called A11N, and I think it's the absolute best net on the market. And while A11N is a company that might not be super well known, they make a ton of sports equipment. I've actually covered some of their paddles on the channel before, including a standard shaped paddle called the Zenith C8. That's a really solid control paddle for anyone curious. But their new net is their real standout product, in my opinion. And while it's not cheap by any measure of the word, I think it's a great value. But before we talk dollars and cents, I want to get into why I think this net is so special. A11N describes it as a semi-portable net, and I think that's an accurate description. This net comes in a huge duffel bag and weighs probably 50 pounds or so, and this thing fills up my entire car trunk. And unfortunately, the bag doesn't have wheels, which I think is an upgrade A11N should consider. But once you get this thing to the courts, that's where the inconvenience and hassle ends. This thing is a breeze to set up. Everything puts together kind of like Legos, and there are no tools required. And once you get the hang of it, it's super fast. I set it up often by myself, and it takes probably around 10 or 15 minutes. And then you're left with a net that is just as good or just about as good as a permanent net, in my opinion. The net tension is unrivaled by any other portable net and is very close to what you get at public courts with permanent nets. The tape is firmer compared to a Swift's, and you won't be having countless balls cheating over the cord with this net. Also, the casters and locking system are as high quality as I've seen. This net always gets head turns whenever I set it up at a public court, and I really, really love it. As for price, this is definitely not the cheapest. The normal price is $600. Compared to Swift's fully portable net, that's almost twice as much. But compared to Selkirk's semi-permanent offering, the A11N one is priced over $2,000 less. Yes, that's $2,000. So once you leave the portable net category, which is dominated by cheap nets that are almost all the same with the exclusion of Swift's net, the category of semi-portable nets gets a little crazy price-wise. And I actually think A11N has priced their net super, super competitively. I think it's worth more than the Swift in my opinion, although it is less convenient. And it has performance qualities of much, much pricier options. Also, A11N is constantly having sales as well. As of making this video, the semi-portable net is on sale for $490, and promo code MatthewK takes off an additional 10%, making the price come down to $441. And compared to the typical $370 price tag we see on Swift nets, I think A11N priced their semi-portable net super well. So I think anyone that has access to courts where they can set up a net should definitely consider this. Skipping open play lines and having a net that functions 99.99% as well as a permanent one is just freaking awesome. Now let's just hope A11N adds some wheels to this thing's back. Now it's time to talk giveaway. I'm super pumped to share that 11624 is letting me give one of these babies away for free. All you need to do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment which version you'd like to win and why, and then fill out the Google form in the description so I have a way to contact you if you win. And that's it. I'll run the raffle in about a month, so be on the lookout for an email. Good luck. And that's all I've got. If you found this video helpful, please consider using promo code MatthewK on your next paddle purchase to help support the channel. I have a lot of the popular brands listed below, and my master list has even more. And I'll be sure to leave a link to 11624's site at the very top. You can also support the channel by purchasing some of the cool pickleball gear I've been testing out by using the links and codes in the video description below. I also have a link to my favorite pickleball gear you can get on Amazon down there as well, and that's got some really cool hidden gems you wouldn't expect. And then of course, hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and slamming that notification bell all go a long way to helping me out as well. Thank you so much for the support. But most importantly, I hope you get to pickle soon, and just don't forget, it's about having fun.